We talked about it a long time ago. For some of you guys, it'll be new. For some of you guys, it'll be a reminder. I think it's a very important reminder for a lot of people. But it's really how do we collapse time, speed up time. And really, it goes to how do we speed up production. And it comes down to the number one weakness I see in our business and even our team. And the weakness, what do you think the biggest weakness that people have at any level?
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Biggest challenge? Discipline, okay, yeah, which is what? Sustainability, right? So people have really good time management. They have really good stuff. They show up consistently. Then what happens? They fall off, right? Even people that are doing really good. And so it comes down to like, what's the ultimate cause with that? And it just comes down to you have to have a way to get through the feelings. You have to way to get through the way that you feel. You have to have a way that just brings you a process and a system to get what we call production, right? So there's a couple main things kind of through I guess you say a formula, but every single person has a gap, right? What do you think the gap is?
Where you want to go.
So we have a gap of, number one, where you are. And number two, what is it? Where you want to go.
Where you want to be.
And who you want to be. But really, it's where you want to go, right? Who am I right now? Where am I at in terms of results? And then also where I want to go. Everybody always wants to do more, but a lot of times we're not really clear how to get more, where to get more, or how to sustain more. I'll talk about two things about that today. And so the problem is, right, the reality is you have to make sure you have to focus on two main things. And it comes down to, I'm going to draw it, try to draw it. What does that look like? Lightning bolt, right? I want you guys to look at this. This is what we call power. It's what everybody tends to miss. Plus, this other thing that we have, I'm going to call this. This is a rocket, which is things, well, that part, production. And so, what's that? In a way. But the production piece is what? My money. But the reality is most people come in, they get super excited, and people have been here for a long time, super excited, right? All of a sudden something comes on, and what tends to lack and go in and out all the time? Power, which is the what?
Like, feel good energy that you need in the morning to get yourself, like, to get to the job.
My power is my ability to produce, right? So my ability to get up and go to war every single day when? When I don't feel like it, right? When things are boring, when it's the same thing over and over and over. And so you have to make sure that I'm understanding that anywhere in any type of business, your ability to master the mundane and have power no matter what happens in your life, both personally and professionally, that you still do what?
Maintain power.
Show up and produce. Regardless of the chaos going outside, chaos going with kids not sleeping, right? Whatever it is, you still have to find a way to do what? Show up and produce, which is important. And so that's a key part. And like, if I can link these two up, I can take this ability to take what I want, right, my gap of what I want to do in 3 to 5 years in all 4 areas of my life, 1 being my body, 2 being my being, which is my happiness, spirituality, 3, my balance, which is my relationships, and 4th, my business. And I can take that. I guess I should have this, but this would be a plus. And have it done in 12 months. So what most people will take them, right, if they can even hit the goal in 3 to 5 years in all 4 areas of life, 1 being business, 2 being their relationships, 3 being their spirituality, and 4th being their health and physicality. I can take this and I can collapse time to 3 to 5 years and have it done in 12 months. And there's a way to do that, right? You have 4 main tools that we talked about over and over and over, but it's a great reminder to come back and I'll show you. Of all this, right, what do you think stops people from getting here?
They're not clear.
Let's say they are clear.
Consistency.
Which is what?
A lot or lack of consistency, I guess you say.
For everybody, do you agree? Which is what? Which is what? What does all those feed into?
Management.
Power. Right? We do the quarterly goals for you. We spend a whole, 2 weeks doing quarterly goals and also annual goals. And all of a sudden what happens, then people get super excited about it, everything's going on, right? I have what I do, and then production sputters. It's not a rocket ship because of this piece right here everybody tends to lag. You guys with me on this? And this is what I want to go back and remind about. And Alex mentioned this in our one-on-one last year in December. I don't think we're talking about utilizing the warrior tools enough that you have and we use. And I was, man, this is really important. If I re-diagnose Q4 last year, so far Q1 this year, this is what lacks. I come in, everybody's super excited, everybody's doing great, you have a great week, you have a great closing, they show up on Monday, and guess what? They're dead. Energy shit, right? Their show-up ratio shit, their mindset shit, right? Because they don't have a thing in place that's systematic that helps them generate power every single day. You guys with me on this? And so if my life is dictated on feelings, what happens to my results? They're truly dependent upon how I feel. Now, who here feels good all the time? Who here feels good most of the time? A couple people, right? I don't even feel good most of the time. But I have the ability to do what? Produce power and make sure I do this every single way. So what's the 4 main ways you do that? Number 1, I'm going to break it down, is the code. What's the code? Right?
Live raw, be raw, relevant.
But what's the code? Real. Live by a code, right? Real, raw, relevant, meaning I what? I don't lie. I live where? Truth. In facts. Truth can be manipulated. Why? My truth is not truth. My truth is based upon my stories. And so fact is where the reality of where am I at right now, and it goes back to what we talked about before, sorry brand new people, it stands for SFL. Stop lying. We tend to lie to ourselves about where we're at, what we do, our commitment, things like that. And so what's happening is we're basing everything around our entire life on stories. What's the problem with stories?
Not true sometimes. They're associated with a feeling.
For anybody that's brand new, right? Can someone who's been here, who can define a story for me? What's a story mean?
Or you can't do it. Quote.
What's that?
Or you can't do it.
Yes, kind of.
So what we tell ourselves to justify our actions.
It can be either way. Story is a narrative that we tell ourselves about a situation. What's the problem with those narratives, you think? They're fully biased. Biased about what? How I feel. The number one thing that determines my story is how I feel. If I'm in a victim mindset or a victim situation, let's say things had not been going great for me the last month or week or 2 months or quarter, what happens to my stories?
Try to justify and blame it on something else.
It always goes to blame something else, right? It tends to go external instead of internal. And that's super important. I was listening to Alex Hormozy this morning, actually, and he talks about if you want to change your life, you always look at where the person who has the ability to fix the problem in their life always goes to where the finger points, right? So if I point the finger to my spouse, they're the only person that can fix it, right? Point the finger at the government, they're the only person that can fix it. And the problem is not going to fix it. But it's not until I point the finger at myself that I have the ability to do what? Fix the problem. And so, we talked about living by the code is the ability to strip away stories and live in a place of facts. What that means is I tell the truth all the time, right? Based on fact. Regardless of how bad it is, I own it. If it's not something that I want or desire, I have to make sure I live by the code. Nothing else matters in this entire equation if I don't have the ability to do what? Live by the code. And that means being real, right? Being raw about the truth of what the facts are. And obviously staying relevant to that situation. But the reality is most people can't do that. They tend to bullshit themselves and bullshit other people about showing up, about dials, about whatever it may be, about commitment. And ultimately, if I'm doing that to other people, what happens to myself? I bullshit myself too. Okay? And so if I live in a place of fantasy, what does life tend to do to me?
Take advantage of it.
Beat you up really bad. Right? Second tool we have here, I'll come back to this, is core. What's core mean? This is why I want to go back, and I haven't talked about this in like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. This is where everybody's missing right now. Is the piece of power. What's the one way I can create power every single day, regardless of what happens in my life?
Purpose.
Purpose. What happens to purpose after a while?
Changes.
It runs out, right? I'm super excited about my goals. My goals are super awesome. I'm very excited about this quarter. But statistically, what happens after 3 weeks? They fall off, right? We see this happen. So, for example, we'll always go through our wins, and at the end of the meeting, you'll see it today. hey, who wants to talk about their wins? And we have 20 people in the room, right? 25, but only 3 want to talk about it. And we're 10%, 12% to the year. Why? Because what happens, purpose tends to wane as what comes in. Feelings, life, situations, stories. And so the only way that I've found in my experience to beat that is to have a system that systematically predicts and creates power for me daily. You guys with me on this? And that is this thing called the Core 4. And it's been something for me lately to make sure I live that out loud, which you've probably seen me posting some of that shit. I do this every day. Been living this shit for over and over and over and over and over for a very, very long time. That's why you don't see me go up too much. You don't see me go down too much. Right? Maybe a bad day here and there if the kids aren't sleeping, but ultimately you see very, very, very consistent action from me. I don't give a shit who shows up, who doesn't show up. Guess who does show up? I do, right? Because I've systematically built a system that allows me to create power every single day. Because even the most driven people, after a while, tend to burn out or have issues that cause them to start looking for simpler solutions versus creating the power from within. And we'll teach that in a second for anybody that hasn't been here. We'll come back. This is what I want everybody to take. Everybody here, even the ones who's been here and seen this presentation a few times before, I haven't done this part, but I've done Core 4, you're still missing it. How do I know? I see it in their face. I see how they show up. I watch the ups and downs every single week because there's no way internally to create power. Okay? And for me to create power, there needs to be a process to do so. I get that from multiple different things. We'll talk about that in a second. Third piece here is the keys. What is that? What's the keys? Anybody know? It's my weekly goal, right? Why does that matter? Because I have to be super focused. Somebody mentioned earlier, super focused on what my production is that week. And so I want to do that weekly. Why? Because I need to make my course corrections and my adjustments on how I'm hitting these goals based on my 30-day plan, my 90-day plan. So when I have purpose, now I have the purpose at the end, which is my 12-month goal here. I'm backing that up with my power and my ability to produce, which is to hunt this down. I have to have clarity on where I'm going. That's why I mentioned that earlier, right? To have clarity on what you're going. And so I have to have the discipline to slow down and understand, okay, what's my true purpose for the week? If I do this one thing a week, nothing else matters. Because what happens is we get sucked into reactionary mode, problems, particularly other people's problems, that tend to do what? Derail us from their game. I watch people get triggered all the time about stuff that has nothing to do with them. They'll get triggered about shit their agents do here. It ultimately takes them off their game because they're not laser focused on what their key is. If your emotion is managed or affected in any way by somebody else who works here, that's your problem. Because you're taking your ability to focus on what's most important off of your product and your prize and putting it in their court. You guys with me on this? And it's very important to understand this because if I do focus on somebody else and I get triggered, what happens to my power? Goes away.
They own it.
If they own it, what happens to it? I don't have it, right? And I can't get it back until I own it, which is crazy, right? And the fourth piece here of this is the game. Now, what does that mean? The game for you guys is our 90-day goals. And also be our 12-month, but that's what I'm reversing engineering on those. Obviously, we laser focus on 90-day goals, which is 3 months. That's our number one target. Why? Because most people do annual goals. They don't do shit until month 9 or 10, 11, and so they don't have the intensity on the first 3 months, the second 3 months, or the third 3 months to make a big difference, right? So, it's a combination of all these, right? Business is simple, but it's a little bit complex. And this is productivity in all parts of my life, not just one. Anybody can be successful in business, but what happens when you're trying to do multiple? It gets more difficult, right? And then what happens to most people? As I'm really good at one thing, what tends to happen to other things? They tend to disintegrate, and then all of a sudden, what happens? I feel bad, then what happens? Now I got to go back and try to fix this shit that I didn't pay attention to or didn't focus on. And so now what happens to my business? It goes down here.